Hello, my name is Matthias Cavodio. I'd like to welcome you guys to my channel. Today we're going to talk about the West Coast Avengers Mini-series that came out in 1984. This series predated, obviously, the ongoing West Coast Avengers. That series I really loved. They tried so many insane ideas in that series. They had a ton of action. They had tons of really good stories. And obviously, Hawkeye was the team leader most of the time of the West Coast Avengers. And the basic premise of this story is that before you can see words in Spanish. I live in Argentina, so these are editions that are. I don't remember if this one's imported from Spain or not, but you're going to see words in Spanish. But the stories are pretty much exactly the same. As I was saying, the premise of the story is that Captain America established that there can only be 6 Avengers on the team at a time. And basically, there was like an overflow of Avengers members floating around. So Hawkeye decides to go to the West Coast and establish another branch of Avengers so they can incorporate new members and have them active in the field. So Hawkeye, in this first issue, he starts building up his team. The first team member is Mockingbird, which is Hawkeye's wife. Like in this miniseries, Mockingbird doesn't get to do too much. There's not too much focus on this character, but in the West Coast Avengers series, there's a story arc that centers around her that is awesome. It's really good and pretty heavy. It touches on some pretty touchy subjects, being a little bit redundant there. But Hawkeye calls in Tigra. She's in San Francisco. She goes down to Southern California, where the Avengers base is. I never checked up where actually the base is, if it's in Los Angeles or in San Diego, the Avengers headquarters, the West Coast Avengers headquarters. Then they call up Wonder Man, who is working in Hollywood. He's like an extra in movies, and he's starting to become like this action movie star. So that's the basic premise of this character and his backstory in the series, and it's going to be a recurring thing that you're going to see in the West Coast Avengers series. We have Iron Man, who's called in to become a new member of the team, who actually isn't Tony Stark, but he's Rhodey, Tony's best friend. So he's sort of getting used to being Iron Man, even though he was already Iron Man during the Secret Wars crossover that came out prior to this. So he does have a little bit of experience, but he's still learning the ropes. And there's some funny things about the art and Iron Man in this miniseries that I want to point out that I just found hilarious. Just start arriving. Actually, they got the call to go into this place, which is going to be the headquarters of West Coast Avengers, and they actually didn't know that Hawkeye was the one who was telling him to come to this place, and the whole plan about being West Coast Avengers, it was like sort of a big surprise. So we get the whole part of the story where Hawkeye explains the whole thing about the 6 members in the East Coast Avengers, and they're going to make a new branch, that he's going to be the leader of this team. And while he's going through the whole explanation of the West Coast Avengers, someone invades their secret base. So we get this ominous shadow dude. We don't know who he is. And the thing is, when they battle the guy, he's a real handful for the West Coast Avengers. It's the Shroud. He's like a really weird and obscure character. And what we discover, because the thing is, he's sort of a hero. So what happened is, when they called up Tigra in San Francisco, she left without telling anyone, and one of her friends got worried for her, so she sent the Shroud to go after her, to find out if anything's wrong and see if she's okay. So that's why he tried to infiltrate the mansion and see if Tigra was okay, if someone had kidnapped her or not. So it's a basic classic superhero misunderstanding. After a brief battle, and poor Shroud gets his ass kicked, Hawkeye offers him to join the team. Shroud declines. He just phases away using his dark dimension powers. So, issue number 2. We have the team training, checking out how they use their powers, how they're going to use them as a team and stuff like that. But in the battle, Rhodey just really unleashes Iron Man's powers and just blasts all his teammates away. And this sort of pisses Hawkeye off. It's like, man, you don't have to go overboard or showboat with your powers and stuff like that. Sort of hurts his ego. And this is actually sort of going to be a recurring theme for Hawkeye being like one of the less powerful. Mockingbird too doesn't have powers, but being one of the less powerful members of the team and having his ego a little bit hurt every once in a while, dealing with these more overpowered characters that are his teammates. So Hawkeye's a little bit pissed off over the situation, and none of the team members know that Rhodey is actually in Tony Stark's armor. So there's this weird tension among the members that they don't know who really they're dealing with yet. They have suspicions it's not Tony Stark, but they're not sure yet. In the second issue, we have the Avengers dealing with this bank robber called the Blank. And he's a pretty uninteresting villain. Gets his power stealing technology from this ex-Tony Stark Stark Industries scientist that got run over. It's a pretty tragic, funny story. Gets run over and he leaves this bag that has all this Tony Stark tech stuff in it, and this guy gets his hands on it, and that's where he gets his Blank powers. And this guy seems to be a real handful for the poor Avengers, so they have to deal with him. But the fact that he's using his powers using this weird machine somehow draws Graviton back to the basic Marvel universe, because normally it's a normal theme for Graviton. Like every time he gets defeated, he gets sucked into another dimension. So he's back. He's one of my favorite overpowered losers. Like he's insanely powerful, but his motivations are like always really stupid. He doesn't matter. He's just doesn't know what to do with his powers. That's his problem. So Graviton, for some reason, wants to become part of the underworld of Los Angeles and Southern California. Gets his hands into that. He doesn't do his classic thing of creating these islands in the sky and causing chaos and trying to take over the world. No, he's going small. He wants to take over the underworld and stuff like that in this story. So he uses this Blank guy as one of his henchmen. And what happens is the West Coast Avengers end up crossing paths, obviously, with Graviton. They battle, and basically Graviton mops the floor with the poor Avengers. He totally obliterates Wonder Man. Sends poor Tigra flying through the air. Shroud also gets his ass kicked. And here's what I was going to tell you guys about Iron Man. That every time you get a close-up of his face, you see he's clenching his teeth. The artist man, he drives. He looks like he has like a... He's having to deal with this tremendous turd. He has to go to the bathroom. He's like really nervous. He's going to shit on himself. Like every time you get a close-up, you see him clenching his teeth. He looks like he's afraid. It's just hilarious. But every single time, there's like 5 or 6 times you get this close-up of him with his face like that. So in this issue, it just really shows off how Hawkeye's just a really good strategist. He knows how to deal with these insanely powerful guys. He makes this pretty interesting plan to take down Graviton. Here we also discover that Hawkeye realizes the guy under the armor isn't Tony Stark. He's actually Rhodey. And Hawkeye's like really pissed off with this situation, but he decides to give Rhodey a chance. Because Rhodey tells him, like, remember back in Secret Wars, I saved all of your guys' butts? Whoa, that was me. So Hawkeye creates this really interesting way in taking down Graviton. They're not going to go confront him directly at first, so Mockingbird uses a disguise as Madame Mask, tells Graviton that she wants to create an alliance with him, with the Magi and stuff like that. Hawkeye dresses up like this 1970s gangster. It's pretty hilarious. And when the battle ensues, Hawkeye's strategy works. He tricks him, uses the dummy and stuff like that. The action is actually pretty good. And the team starts to work pretty well together as a full-on unit. So I'm going to leave this video here. West Coast Avengers, if you haven't read it, this run was really, really solid. I had a lot of fun. It was really bizarre. It was very 80s, but in the best way. So see you guys next time. Bye.